Hey friends, my name is Rye Rivers, and you're listening to the Jay Francis Show.
Welcome to the Jay Franzi Show, a behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franzi.
Well, hello, and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franzi, and this is your backstage pass to the music industry. This week, we get to talk with a country music recording artist. We get to talk with Rye Rivers. We'll talk to him about his recent name change, how he's been able to assemble such an amazing team at the start of his career, and we'll discuss his songwriting process. Now, Rye, he is not only an amazing talent, but he is an amazing person, and I can't wait to talk with him tonight. So if you would like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jfranzi.com. Now, let's get started. Well, we just mentioned your name. Let's just go ahead and get that over with right out of the gate here. What is the deal with the name change?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I recently changed my artist name from Ryan Adam, which was my birth name from my mother, to Rye Rivers. It was a big decision for me, being that my mother gave me that name, but it's something I've always felt like I needed to do, and it was, it suited me for earlier in my artist career. I started off really in like pop soul music is where I kind of started releasing music under Ryan Adam, but country is something that's always been true to my heart and something that's always been a part of me. I can remember times in recording studios with the producers for like a pop record or something, and they're like, "You sound really country, let's sing that a different way." And I had to kind of change how I sang it. So it's always been something that's dear to me, to my heart. It's authentic to who I am, and it just felt like the natural time to make the name change, because the new projects that I have coming out are absolutely country to their core. So I felt like if I was going to do it, now's the time to do it. Another factor behind it was there is a Ryan Adams and a Bryan Adams. So for SEO purposes, it was like, this just makes so much sense. And I'm so happy I did it now, like seeing it everywhere and performing under it. And it was a lot. I didn't realize how much comes with changing your artist name. I mean, you don't realize it and you don't think about it until you're like, holy crap. All right, I got to change that. I got to do that. I got to do merch. I got to change my email address. I got to change my website. The hardest part is transferring your catalog on the DSPs, which are like Apple Music and Spotify and stuff, so that all my music that I put out switches over to the new name. Some stores give you a hard time about that. Not going to say a name, but it's a forbidden fruit. Where like they won't let you travel your music under your new name. So it's been a whole struggle, but thankfully I have a really good team with me. We've just kind of been working through it together.
Well, how long would you say it takes from start to finish when you decide to change your name till it actually gets complete?
I think it really depends on who you have working with you. If you're doing it completely by yourself, it can be very overwhelming and it can take you weeks. And it also depends on kind of how tech savvy you are in terms of like, example for the website, you have to purchase a new domain name. Then you got to transfer your current website to that new domain name. Then you got to make sure everything else that linked to your old website links to your new website. And all the, like for example, my email address is linked to my website. So I had to transfer all those and then make sure all those old email addresses forward to the new email address. So just the little technical nuances of it can be super annoying. And if you're not well versed in it, can be like completely overwhelming. Thankfully, but I did this all the hard way. I've done it all myself. I've done my whole artist journey by myself. So I learned how to do that throughout the years of doing this. So I had an idea of how to do it all. You forget as you do it because it's over like the process of many years. So it's like, oh crap, let me pull up YouTube and figure out how to do this again. There it is. Okay. So yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming, but I'm happy with it. It was a lot of work and I knew it was going to be a lot of work, in the front end, but I'm happy that I did it and it's been working out really well for me so far.
Well, as we talk about the name and being more authentic to who you are in the social media accounts and the website, how important do you feel branding is to you in your career?
I mean, I think it's everything for artists nowadays. Just stemming from the artist's are their own business, right? Even in terms of like getting a record deal, the game has changed so much that labels back in the day used to have this whole infrastructure where they would discover talent, bring you in, do the whole A&R thing, coach you, do everything, right? Build you from the bottom to the top and then put you out there and you have a whole team behind it. Where now the game's changed so much that they're looking at how can we insert ourselves and invest in you? They look for artists who already have things going on. They have fans, they have tours, they have merch, they're bringing in revenue. And it's like, how can we come in as a partner? Here's $500,000 for your marketing to take you to the next level and blah, 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 blah. So branding is everything. On top of that, the market is just so saturated. I think there's like 100,000 songs that get released on Spotify every day. I mean, it's some insane statistic. So how do you separate yourself through all that noise? And it's through your branding. Unfortunately, I think we live in the society today where people see you before they hear you as well.
Right.
Right. So TikTok has completely changed the game. I mean, that's how music's discovered nowadays, fortunately. But fortunately, for independent artists, you can have a viral moment and make a whole career off of TikTok and stuff.
Well, if it wasn't for those opportunities of TikTok, Instagram, and so on, you'd still be knocking on doors trying to prove yourself to somebody else.
Exactly. And the gatekeepers and everything that goes with all that. So it's fortunate, but I think it's more fortunate than unfortunate, that we have that ability to do that now. So the long answer to your question is it's extremely important. And it's, I would say, hand in hand almost with the music, the branding and the visuals and everything.
Well, let's take it a step further. As we talk about branding and we talk about the importance of social media when it comes to an independent artist, especially these days when it's all on your shoulders, you are still young in your career, and yet you've already got a team started for you and everything like that. How are you doing it so early in your career?
I think I'm early in my career, but I've been doing it for so long. I'm just starting to now see the success because I've been working at it for so long. And I think when people around you and you find the right people and they believe in you and they see that, it's a lot easier to build a team. When they see that you're not the weakest link on the chain and you're working just as hard, if not 5 times harder than them, which you have to be as the artist, you're the one leading the team. I think that, and I think luck. Again, I've been doing this since about 2018 is when I released my first single. So I would just say luck. Yeah, honestly, luck and hard work, just putting your head down, doing it so that when the right person comes along at the right time and they're willing to invest in your career, whether that's financially, whether that's just jumping on board and being like, hey, 2 heads are better than one, and just someone to even throw ideas off who's in your corner and can maybe be there at your gigs and filming you, or being there when you're trying to shoot content, like, no, that's weird, let's try this, or how about this, just meeting on a weekly basis, anything as simple as that. It's so monumental. It really does take a team. And I mean, I'm just starting to get a team, and it's already been like life-changing, to be honest.
Well, you've got a very good team of people behind you right now, so you can't complain too much about that.
I cannot complain at all. I'm very lucky and very blessed.
All right, so let's talk about your location. I know I mentioned at the beginning of this that you were from Florida.
Yep.
Is Florida the original residence, or did you move to Florida?
Nope, I am a true native, born and raised in my area.
One of the few.
One of the few, yes, I'm a rare breed.
What part of Florida are we talking about?
So I was raised split between Pompano Beach, Florida, which is like a cozy beachside town just north of Fort Lauderdale for anyone who's kind of familiar with the area, super north of Miami. Split between that and Okeechobee, Florida, which is, I would call it Central Florida, where I was raised kind of on a farm there. That's where my dad lives and my mom lives here in Pompano.
Well, I ask you that because I spent time in Florida. I lived there for 6 years and spent most of my time in Orlando, Central Florida. Very cool. And then I also spent some time out in the Tampa area.
Beautiful.
So I'm somewhat familiar. My sister-in-law used to live in Miami, now lives in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So I have quite a bit of friends who are still down there. But the reason I asked that is I spent a lot of time around the different areas of Florida, and they each have their different pocket of music, a different feel to their music. So how important do you think the location being split like that plays into your style of music?
I think it's super important. I mean, besides my parents being such a huge musical influence on me, Florida's just such a diverse state culturally and musically. I mean, I live in Pompano right now, which is like anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes from Miami, but Miami is like a different world. Like it's just so different than the rest of the state, and even just all the outer cities along the coast of Florida is so different than the rest of, like, I would say anything from Central Florida to the Panhandle. I always say Florida's the only state where you go north to go south, where like where I live, my dad's farm is like 2.5 hours away from here, and people who are native to Okeechobee have thick Southern accents, and it's just crazy because it's like then you go to Pompano where they sound like me, and then you go to Miami and it's in a whole nother world. So it's a really diverse state. And I've always loved that about Florida. There's so much life here and different things that, and all the natural beauty that Florida has. I would not want to be raised anywhere else. I love my state.
I'm from Boston.
Oh, cool.
A Yankee, as they say.
Yeah. I have family from there, from Massachusetts. They live in Needham and Plymouth.
Okay, yeah. Very cool. Now, the reason I bring this up is because being a northerner, and I currently live what I call North Nashville. I live in Kentucky now. I spent 20 plus years in Nashville and just moved a little further north so we could raise the family up here.
Cool.
But you come across more like people from Boston than you do from people from Nashville or even Florida. So do you feel like the transients that are in and out of Florida play a part in who you are?
A lot of the transients down here are from New York, and I don't see myself like that at all. I think I'm way more laid back than them. No shade to the New Yorkers. They move a lot differently.
I have nothing against New York. My family's from New York, but I am a Bostonian through and through. So,
Sure.
We have to at least cut the line right there at the Yankees.
Yeah. You got your car outside and your water and your coffee.
I park the car in Harvard Yard. And,
Yeah, go watch the Sox play.
All right, enough of that.
Right.
Anyways, so your father had a farm, and your parents were musical influences on your career.
Mm-hmm.
So
Has a farm. He still has it. He still
has a
lives
farm.
there.
What kind of farm are we talking about?
Just a simple farm. You have goats, chickens, pigs. I had hogs at one point, turkeys. I mean, he's retired up there now, so it's just more so for fun rather than like a for-profit farm. So he just lives out in the middle of nowhere and loves it.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, I love it.
If they were musical influences in your life, what style of music were they listening to?
Yeah, so my mom was more of like the R&B, soul, jazz stuff, and my dad was definitely more country and classic rock.
All right. Now, again, just because you mentioned it, I need to know, what do you consider to be classic rock?
Classic rock. Anything from like the 60s to late 70s, anything in that area I would consider classic rock. So, I mean, I was raised on a lot of Lynyrd Skynyrd to Bon Jovi to...
All right. Well, you had me up till Bon Jovi. I mean, I like Bon Jovi.
Yeah,
but it's a little bit more
Yeah, I was gonna
80s and 90s rock.
Boston.
All right, Boston. We're back in favor here. Boston's probably one of the best bands ever.
Musically and vocally.
Oh, yeah.
Try and cover a Boston song. Good luck.
No, thank you. So, your parents being influences, were they musicians themselves?
No, I am the only musical person in my family. My dad messes around with the harmonica. That is about it. I think on both sides of my family, the only other person, like my one uncle, is an artist, a visual artist who plays the drums, but that is it. I am the only one. Completely self-taught. I had to learn all myself.
So how did the influence turn into actually performing music?
Yeah, I always knew from a young kid music hit me differently. I always knew it was more than just infatuation or romantic about it. I knew it was the only thing that made me happy in life. I mean, I find myself still to this day waking up and it's the first thing I think about, whether it's singing or songwriting or something. I knew it's what I wanted to do from a very early age. That's, I think, what forced me to put in my 10,000 hours and learn the craft of songwriting kind of by myself in this area outside of a real writing community like what is offered in Nashville or LA. Down here in Florida, a lot of the music scene, if you're in Miami, and you're in the Latin scene, that's great. But outside of that, the music scene down here is a lot of like gig driven. So it's a lot of people, with that, just out for themselves, just looking to make the living. Where it's not like a real artist community, I'd say, here, where it's just creators just trying to create and collaborate and stuff like that. So, yeah, I just knew it's what I wanted to do. And it's always touched me in different ways ever since I was a little kid. I started off with like poetry and beatboxing, actually, just because I did grow up around a lot of instruments. So that was something I could do by myself. From there, I started taking piano lessons around like, seriously, I would say around like ninth grade is when I really started to jump into it heavily. My mom tried to put me in piano lessons in like fourth grade, but I just was too young and ADD and didn't want to take the time to practice as a fourth grader. And my mom's like, all right, not paying for it. We tried. But once I got into about middle school, high school, I was like, no, I need to learn how to play an instrument. That's how you write songs and stuff. So that's how I got into playing keys and stuff.
Well, you mentioned Florida being gig driven when it comes to the music scene. Now, when I was there, it was in the 90s. And in the 90s, there was a heavy rock scene. You had bands like Matchbox 20, Von Ray, and a few others that I really enjoyed. So the music scene was great for that, but that was in the Orlando area.
I was about to say, was it Orlando?
Right. And so, but then as you started to go outside of Orlando, you ended up in the different pockets. But it's not just gig driven. I mean, it's tourist driven. So you end up with cruise ships, you end up with theme parks, you end up with hotels that are bringing people in to perform music. So the music scene is huge there, and you can make a living playing music your entire life.
Don't get me wrong.
Playing covers at a bar or
exactly.
a hotel.
You can get gigs, and the best part about it is it's year round.
Right. Yeah.
We don't have to deal with the weather or anything. You can be playing outside in December through December of the next year. So it's great. Like I said, it's great for gigs. You can keep gigs all throughout the year. We do have a bit of a season down here, I would say, in terms of like tourism, where it does slow down, like September, the summertime. So that could affect a little bit. But yeah, for the most part, you can get gigs because it's just such a tourist state.
All right. So your parents were influences. You started playing piano. You wanted to write songs, and you started putting songs together. At what point did you start performing those songs out live?
Yeah. I really started performing, I would say, in like early high school. Because that's when I really started to force myself to try and get gigs and perform, whether it's like locally through educational things with the school or just like local talent shows or stuff like that. But gigging for real, like where you actually get paid real money, I would say probably around freshman year of college, sophomore year of college. That's when I really was like, all right, you want to do this for real, this is what it takes. And you got to start making money with it. Otherwise. Yeah.
What college are we talking about?
Not far from here, right up the road, Florida Atlantic University, FAU.
All right. And what was the major of choice?
I double majored. So I majored in business administration, and I also majored in commercial music business. So, I wanted to have the business side of it because I know that's a huge component of it, and it made my parents happy too. Don't get me wrong, they always believed in me, but it was just like, okay, cool, we can do that.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I told my father I wanted to drop out of architectural engineering to go into audio engineering, and he said, that's fine, but you need to have a backup plan.
Sure.
So I have a degree in business as well as audio engineering.
Cool. I mean, it's a great tool to have, even just to learn the skills if you don't use it. I think for me, college is all about making connections and learning new skills that you wouldn't have learned elsewhere. So I loved it for that. And I always throughout my education kept music in it somehow. So doing that double major, I loved it. I got to be in the music program with all the music kids, but I didn't have to major in music, and I could still do the whole business side and mingle and meet all those people that way. So it was great.
Do you remember the first gig that you played that paid you?
Yes. Yes. And it was an acoustic gig. So just me. And I had my buddy accompany me on piano as well here in Fort Lauderdale at a bar. Yeah.
What was the feeling like when you received your first payment?
See, mom and dad, you can make money doing this. I told you. It was really cool because it's like, wow, I just made money off something that I love doing, and I would have done it for free if they
Yeah,
didn't even
let's
pay
not
me.
say
So,
that too loud.
yeah, I know that was back then. It's different now. Got bills to pay now.
All right. So when you started writing songs for yourself, do you remember which song was the first one that made you feel like, okay, I think I can make this happen?
Oh yeah, it was actually early on. It was, I would say, in middle school is really when I fell in love with songwriting, and I discovered putting singing, playing, and telling stories together that you can make a career out of it. And then researching it and being like, wow, yeah, people do this for a living. This is crazy. And the people that you see on TV and hear on the radio aren't the only ones that are involved with making these songs. And there's actually a whole network of people behind all these songs who write them and bring them to your ears. And most people have no idea. And they think it's just like one person in a room writing the song and it's the artist, and it's not true.
And what song was this?
That song was called "Please Just Stay," and I actually co-wrote it with a friend at the time. And she was actually the person who got me into singing because we did a talent show, and I had missed the deadline for the talent show, and she was like out front of the venue, and she's like, "Well, hey, what are you doing? I'm about to go do my audition. I'm playing guitar. What do you do?" And I was like, "Well, I beatbox." And she was like, "Okay, that's weird, but maybe we could just do it together." And I was like, "You want me to audition with you?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, cool." So long story short, we did it. We made it onto the talent show, and then through like rehearsing and stuff, she was like, "So you don't sing or anything? Like, have you tried singing?" And I was like, "No, not really. Like singing, I beatbox and like I write poetry and rap and stuff. What are you talking about?" Freestyle at my brother's parties for him is like a fun thing to
Nice.
do. And she's like, "Well, why don't you try like beatboxing on a song and singing on it?" I was like, "Okay, cool." So we did it, and I was like, from there on, I just fell in love with singing. I was like, oh my god, the voice is like a whole other instrument besides like playing piano. So from there, I just dedicated my life to like finding my voice and fine tuning my instrument and learning how to use it. And yeah, we wrote. That was the first time I would say I wrote like an official song together, like from front to back, and performed it all around, and figured out that I was, I think, somewhat decent at it. Yeah, that was probably the first song, and it was like a little hit at our middle school. Like we performed it at the show, and then everyone loved it. So like at all the different events at the school, they'd have us. It was us performing, and it was super cool. It was like a little hit inside our school, and everyone would sing it and be like, "Oh my god, play the song."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's take that a step further. So that's the first time you start singing and discover your voice, and your
Yeah.
voice is very unique. And because it's unique, do you feel as if you skipped the part in your career of trying to sound like other people?
Um, no, because I mean, that was pretty early on, and for years I was still working on it. I mean, I still work with the vocal coach today, fine tuning it. I think coming from a non-musical family too was a big influence on finding my voice, because it was a lot of it was just all done through me. It wasn't like I had grew up in a family who sang and we were like singing harmonies and stuff like that. It was no one in my family does anything with music. So it was totally me finding it all by myself and being like, okay, well, I love like country and I love soul and I love rock, and like how do I put that all together? But my voice is like, kind of smoother and higher, but I love like singing runs, but also I want it to be like gritty, so it was really just understanding my instrument and how to use it properly, and then deriving, my tone from that and stuff.
So you said no. Does that mean there was a time where you tried to emulate other people?
Absolutely. I mean, I think all singers, that's how you start singing. It's your even from a young kid, you emulate people. You emulate your favorite singers on the radio. So that's how people learn to
So
sing is
who
from
were those
emulating.
influences?
Elton John, Steve Perry, or I would say two very big ones, but also, I mean, growing up again with Boston, Aerosmith, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Bruno Mars, Chris Stapleton, Tim McGraw. It's a whole mix.
It's a diverse group of people for sure.
Yeah.
No, Steve Perry was my favorite singer growing up. He's probably still one of my favorite singers ever.
Ah, so good.
By far, he earns the nickname of the voice. Now, you did a cover of Journey, and you actually did a cover of my favorite Journey song ever, and that's Faithfully.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, I hope I did it justice.
Can you tell me why you chose to do a cover of that song?
I love Journey. They're one of my favorite bands, from the songwriting to the guitar playing to Steve's voice, obviously. And when I look for covers, I look for, does it resonate with me? And can I kind of match the tone a little bit? And if not those two things, then is it something I can completely make my own and it still resonates with me? So I love that song. I love the story behind the song. And I felt like it matches my voice pretty well. So yeah. And I feel like if you can do a Journey song and do it well, it's just like set you apart as a singer too.
Well, I think that's definitely it. I always see these people on American Idol or The Voice, and you've got some amazing singers, but when they choose to sing a song that was originally done by an absolute icon, you either have to kill it or stay away from it.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of female vocalists that go on there and try to sing songs from the band Heart. And that band was an absolutely amazing band with amazing vocal talent. And when I hear somebody do it, I just think to myself, this is either going to be one of the best things ever or it's going to be a train wreck. There's usually nothing in between. And I think you run into that same challenge when it comes to singing a Steve Perry song. You either have to nail it or it's going to be a train wreck. Did you think about any of that before you did it, or did you just do it?
I just did it. I knew I'd like the song and it resonated with me and I worked on it and I was like, yeah, I want to do this song. I love the song. I think part of that too is just, again, exploring your voice and finding all the things you can do through it, and you do it through covering people's music, again, emulating. That's how people find their voice. We're all a collection of different sounds and influences that we heard growing up, and then you make it into your own.
No, absolutely. I always tell people that, and that when it comes to songwriting, when it comes to being a vocalist or a musician or even an engineer or producer that works behind the scenes, that you take in all of these things from all of these other people that you look up
Absolutely.
to. And you're going to find things that you like, and you're going to find things that you don't like, and you're going to pick and choose what works for you, and then that's going to become your style. So you go from, like you said, singing soul music, singing cover tunes like Journey, and now you're focusing your career on country music.
Yep.
So when it comes to country music, let's start with the story itself. How important do you feel storytelling is to country music?
Everything. It's the foundation of it. And that's why country's always been here for me. Because for me, in my writing, it's always storytelling. I mean, you can listen to pretty much all my songs and they all tell a story. You know what I mean? I'm not the type of writer where it's just like looking for like little hooky pieces. For me, it all has to kind of make sense and it have soul in it. So that's why I love country music. I mean, they're the country artists and songwriters are the greatest storytellers of all time. And that's what it stemmed from. I mean, back to the Appalachian Mountains and stuff. These were folk songs. They were stories. A lot of times it's how they taught people things, or it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. That's essentially where I live. So yes, I completely understand that.
Uh-huh.
So when it comes to writing songs, do you start with lyrics then, or do you start with melody, music? Where do you start?
Yeah, it kind of comes in different ways. Usually it does come with words and melody at the same time. I'm not usually one who a melody just pops into my head. Usually it's both at the same time. So it'll come into my mind, then I'll be like, okay, where do I want to take this? Like, what are you trying to say, Ryan? Like, what is the story? You know, whether it's me talking about something from my life, pulling from other experiences in my life, or that I see my friends deal with, or stuff like that, or just like a cool song title. And it's like, all right, I have a list of song titles in my phone and my notes on my iPhone. It's called Song Ideas. and it's literally like hundreds of different title names. So sometimes I'll go into sessions and just go through that with people and be like, oh, you like that? That sounds cool. Okay, let's write that today. Or sometimes it's just like comes when I'm in the shower, annoyingly when I'm falling asleep, and I'm like, wait, I gotta write that down. Let me record that. And you wake up in your morning, like, what the hell was that? But yeah, I would say storytelling is at the foundation of what I do.
It's funny you say you can get it when you're falling asleep or in the
Oh
shower.
yeah,
Those are the places where people's mind are most relaxed, and that's why those ideas
absolutely.
come to you. So I can completely
Total
understand that
meditative state.
happening. Yeah. So when it comes to writing the songs, you get your lyric and your melody first. Do you then take it to an instrument, or then do you start collaborating with somebody else?
Yeah, so usually it's me at a piano. I'll record it in my phone on like a voice memo, and then I'll sit down at the piano and put some chords behind it and try to write it from there. I'm not big on production just because, coming from not having anyone around me to kind of teach me the ropes with that and not really going to school for it. I try to find what I can and stick to what I do best, and that is songwriting and singing. So when it comes to production, I'll usually write the song out, record like a rough tape, and then try to find a producer to help bring the idea to life.
Well, with your transition into country music and your team being based out of Nashville, do you find yourself now going to Nashville and starting to work with teams when it comes to songwriting?
Absolutely, and it's absolutely, yeah. We've been commuting to Nashville back and forth now pretty heavily, so that's a blessing. I've always known since I was little, even I have no idea how, but I've always known I wanted to be in Nashville, even before I even really knew what it was as a young kid. I've always been fascinated by it for some reason. I named my dog Nashville, actually, after Nashville. It's, one syllable now, and now it's Nash, but his government name is Nashville.
His government name, I like it. So what's the big difference between writing on your own like you were to now writing in Nashville? What's the biggest difference to you?
For me, I'm a people person, and I love collaboration. And I think you find out so much about yourself as a writer from collaborating. Like, you can write alone in your room for so long, but you have to get out there and write with people, because that's how you find your strength. That's where you see where you fit in, and how you can sit back and learn and listen and, take ideas. And I think the best work comes from people working together. That's why I was so big on like building, a team and the right team. But yeah, collaboration for me is huge. And I every time I go to Nashville, it's always been such an amazing time. And I just look forward to going back and forth a lot more and planting all my seeds everywhere that I can, so I can hopefully make the jump one day and just have to be there a lot longer.
We talk about your team again.
Yeah.
Are they the ones arranging these songwriting sessions?
It's kind of half and half. So, whenever we can get in there and collab with people from people that they know, and then for me, again, just going there and planting seeds and making connections, going to write-arounds, doing open mic nights, and just, naturally grassroots meeting people. So I would say it's a mix. I found my way there on my own. Again, always wanting to be in Nashville. I wrote this next single that I have coming out, which is kind of the basis that started this whole thing, my song called Kiss a Cowboy. So kind of a cool story behind it. I was at a music festival, a country music festival down here in Fort Lauderdale. It's super cool. It's called Tortuga Music Festival. It's literally on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. Like, they have to put down plastic barriers because the tour buses drive up on the beach and, behind the stage, and they build everything on the sand. So I've gone to this music festival like 7 years in a row because it's literally like 20 minutes away from my house, and it's the sickest thing ever. And it's all country music, and it's amazing. So I was there, and that's where the idea for this song hit me. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to keep it in my head all weekend. Granted, this is a 3-day festival. There's lots of drinking and stuff going on. So I'm like, I put it on my phone, trying to keep it in my head. And I was just like talking with my really good friend about like all the different ways it could be written and stuff. So finally, long story short, I get home Monday morning after the festival, sit down on my piano, hungover as hell, and literally just hit the first chord. And it was like the fastest song I've ever written. So I wrote it, worked on it again by myself here, and I was trying to find the right producer for it. I knew I wanted to do it in Nashville, being the nature of the song. So I came across a gentleman named Trey Bruce, Really cool dude, really prolific songwriter, producer up there in Nashville. How that came about was super interesting too. So I was manifesting going to Nash. I knew I wanted to go there. I was trying to figure out like how to connect with producers and stuff, being from here, not really knowing anyone there, and not having like a super huge following, yet. So we link up. I saw him. I think it was like American Songwriter or something. He was like one of the interviewees there. So I reached out to him via Instagram, didn't hear anything back. And I was like, So there's a program called Sound Better, which musicians can use to hire other musicians, whether it's like background singers, producers, stuff like that. So I was on there. I was like, oh my God, there's Trey. And you could hire him to do a sound check, which is where like you submit your song, demo, whatever, to a music professional and you pay and they give you, a critique on the song and blah, blah, blah. And he gave me some really good critique. And I was like, cool. So I went back and like kind of rewrote the song a little bit and tweaked some things. And then a couple months go by, I'm performing it live. I think I got it locked in. And I finally DM'd him again. And I was like, hey, man, I reached out to you a while ago. I'm, Rye Rivers. You gave me my feedback on the song. And he was like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I love that song. And I'm like, cool. Well, I'm actually looking for a producer in Nashville to produce it. And he was like, hell yeah, dude. I would love to do that. Let's set it up. So go through the whole thing, set it up. I fly up there to record it. We have a super fun time. It went so well. We ended up actually co-writing a song together because when we were there after, we finished the recording session, I was like, hey man, look, like I have all these other songs. I want to show you I can write. Like I'm not just like a one trick pony. Like I don't just have one good song that I got lucky with. Like here's all these songs. So we play them and we get to one and he like starts it over. And he's like, wait. It's like, that one's really cool, but we need to rewrite it. And I was like, well, what do you suggest? And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, why don't we write it together? He's like, that's what we're doing. Grab a guitar. I'm like, okay, cool. So like we end the recording session. Now I'm writing a song with Trey Bruce. My mind is like blown. I'm like, what the freak is going on right now? Like what is real? So now we have that song that we're working on together too. And it was just one of those things where you put yourself in these situations and something you've been working towards for so long and weird little things just start going right. Like little signs, little, even crazy little things. You're just like, this feels right. I'm meant to be here. Like reaffirming that I'm doing the right thing and I'm meant to be where I'm meant to be. So it's super cool.
That is really cool. Take a second to walk us through that recording process.
Yeah, so Trey is a full-blown through and through country producer. He's had a lot of like classic country hits. But his house is super cool. His studio is in his house and it's out there in Franklin, Tennessee, so just outside of Nashville. So it's super chill. We go there. He has his dogs, his family. You go downstairs into his basement, and it's a whole really sick studio. So I think we did it over the course of like 2 days, which is really rushed. I mean, sometimes it can be that fast, but for the most part, it's like, when I go to Nashville, I'm there, and it's usually like boom, 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 and I'm handling business, right? Because I'm there usually like a Thursday through Sunday or Friday through Sunday because I still have a day job. I'm not at the point where I can fully sustain myself financially with music yet. I'm working on it, but I still, work a regular 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So when I go to Nashville, it has to be like boom, 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 and I have to get it, done, 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 done. So it was super fun. It was a really cool learning process, just learning from someone who's such a titan in the industry and going through their process and comparing it to like everything else I've done and seeing how, the ins and outs of it. And it was a really cool learning experience and it was a lot of fun. And I'm super excited for this song.
Did he bring in session players for the song?
Being the nature of the whole process of me living down here, it was different, than how going into a studio and like being there for like 2 days and just tracking like a whole band and stuff and working, with the budget that I gave him for production. So we had to do things a little differently than if you had like a big budget from like a label and stuff like that. So I think he brought in 2 session players just to track like a dobro, but everything else was him and I on it.
So with that said, does he play drums?
He does play drums, but he actually has this whole file on his computer where he's gone into different studios and tracked all these different drum sounds and had drummers play all these different drums. So he can go ahead and just program all the drums that he wants from real drums, which was super cool. Have you ever seen like Hans Zimmer on 60 Minutes where they interview him and he's done the same thing, but his catalog is like thousands of different instruments where he's like spent the time and money to go in and track all these different things. And he's like, oh, you want a violin? And it's not like a fake violin. It's someone who's actually played and stuff. It's super cool.
What was the biggest memory from that time?
I think meeting Trey and working with Trey and co-writing with him. I mean, that I look back at Chris, my manager, who was in the session with us, like when Trey was like, "Yeah, let's rewrite it." I look back at it, I'm like we just couldn't believe it was going on. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So I think that was really cool. That and then things just falling into place and just universe telling you you're doing the right thing. I went to the Commodore Grill, which is a really cool open mic night spot in Nashville where a lot of big artists have come through. And I went just for the open mic night, right? Because I didn't know anyone there. It's my first time playing. So they just put you on stage at 10 o'clock and you get to do like the open mic night. I go there, some writer canceled. So I got to go right into a writer's round. So that was super cool to do that. And just for the first time doing your first open mic in Nashville, being thrown into a real writer's round and being able to play these songs. I think I played Kiss a Cowboy for them that day on a track. I was like, texted Trey and I was like, "Hey, can you just, I know this is really random, but can you just send me like an instrumental of the track? I know it's not even done yet, but just something I can sing to, even if it's just guitar and chords." And he's like, "All right, I don't know if it's going to sound good or not, but here you go." So I got to play it right from the studio, then going out and performing it live, which is my favorite thing to do. I am a performer and I love connecting with people. Playing live is my favorite thing to do. And it's a part of my craft that I've worked on tirelessly to be the best at. So to be able to just do it live right after the studio was really cool and see how people react, which people really liked it. So that was super fulfilling.
We talked about branding earlier when it comes to your career, your identity, your social media accounts, and so on. How important do you feel charisma is to live performance?
I think it's like monumental, instrumental, if that's the word.
So, what do you do to hone that craft?
Stage miles. I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it, and the more you work on your craft and get comfortable with what you want to do on stage, the easier it comes and the easier you can get into that flow state and just be yourself and enjoy it, live in the moment.
Do you feel like you have natural charisma?
I think so. I definitely think I'm an introvert. I love connecting with people and talking with people and meeting new people. So that part of it for me, I feel like comes natural. But I do enjoy my downtime. I absolutely need my alone time. Like sometimes when I perform, I come off stage and I'm just like, I'm just drained. I gotta recharge, have a second to myself, sleep, eat some food, and then I'm good to go.
Well, being so young in your career, there still has to be some challenges that you've gone through. So, what are some of the challenges you've had so far?
Absolutely. I mean, for the longest time, I was doing this completely by myself, right? I don't come from rich parents. I don't come from a musical family. So I was finding my way for the longest time. And I think until I linked up with my manager, Chris, it was kind of just like shooting in the dark, working on this, doing that, trying to put it all together. But it could be extremely overwhelming by yourself. So I would say that was probably one of the biggest challenges was just like, all right, where do we put the focus? All right, let's break it down into 3 pillars. Let's do recording, let's do live shows, or let's do social media. And let's just pound those 3 things and get those where they need to be to take it to the next level.
So, what setbacks have you had so far?
I mean, where do I even start? I've had my equipment rained on. That was really crappy. I did a gig here in Florida, and being the nature of the beast, sometimes rain just comes out of nowhere and it's like a hurricane and it can last for 10 minutes, but it can piss down like 10 gallons of rain. And
Right.
I did a gig with my band and like all of our stuff got rained on and destroyed. And as the band leader, who does that fall on? Right? For the liability and stuff. So that sucked. That was a lot of hard hours that went into saving up to buy all that equipment and just gone like that. So that was pretty rough. I would say that's a professional one. Personally, I would say growing up in a split household wasn't always the easiest thing for my brother and I. I would say from a very young age, as far as I can remember, our parents had a struggle financially, and I think that took a big toll on their relationship. So watching them struggle to the point where they just had to separate and go their own ways, and again being split kind of between those two places took a little bit of a toll on my brother and I. But it all was for the best at the end. And sometimes in life, two people just don't work out. And I still have two amazing parents, who would do anything for us and gave us a great upbringing.
What parent did you spend your time with?
My mom, just because I lived with her, for the
So,
most part, and it was more like going to visit dad.
so how was it to maintain the relationship with your father then?
Um, yeah, sometimes we didn't always see eye to eye. I think he's uh, just have very budding personalities. So sometimes when we get together, it's like we don't always see eye to eye. Um, so it was a struggle at some time. You wouldn't see him for a while and have to go and see him, and he'd be busy working and stuff. Just trying to keep his head above the water. Um, yeah,
Did your brother experience that same relationship?
yeah, because him and I live together here with my mom, so going back and forth, and I would say, yeah,
So his experiences were the same
yeah.
essentially as yours. Well, we talk about the connection. We talked about social media earlier and the importance of building that brand and everything. So, what are you doing these days to connect with your audience and continue to strengthen your brand?
Yeah, so it's been again just getting the best songs we can recorded and putting those out. I feel like so many artists do this thing where they hoard their music, and it's like, dude, no one's gonna ever hear it unless you get it out there. And just getting it out there, doing it in a crafty way so it doesn't seem like it's shoved down people's throats, and doing it authentically to yourselves and to who I am. Yeah, that and then just having a budget to put together, when you do get the gigs that matter, having the like a right videographer there to capture that, because it's so important. I feel like a lot of times artists get these gigs and they drop the ball when it comes to the videography and the content behind it. You know what I mean? You can talk about all these gigs you had, but the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is social media. So if it's not posted, you're ghosted. I just made that up, but
There
yeah.
you go. I was going to say you might want to save it, but no, maybe let's let that one go. Again, back to the social media and the strength of it all and everything. I know when I was growing up, it was a lot earlier than you, and we didn't have social media. So getting your music out there to people was a much different approach. These days, with things like TikTok and Instagram, where you can release music every single day if you wanted to, multiple times a day, I've noticed a lot of artists have to release a different spin on the same piece of music every day. How do you keep your fan base from getting burnt out on a piece of music, especially before something even gets released?
I think it probably just stems down to how crafty you can be using it and keeping it authentic to who you are. And I think it makes it kind of more fun too, that you can release your song in so many different ways now. You know what I mean? Like I think it was Sabrina Carpenter. She released her song Espresso on like 9 different variations. It's like sped up, slow down, acoustic, just drums, just vocals. I was like, when did releasing an acapella become cool? Like, all right, I've always loved that, but okay, cool. Like, yeah, let's just put that out. Cool. Another single for 6 weeks that you can write on and just help tickle the algorithm. Sure. Why not? Fun.
You mentioned your videographer as well, and your video headspace, was it headspace?
Head trip.
Head trip, where you're flying.
Yeah.
So how did you go? How did you guys create the effect of you guys flying?
Yeah. So that was a fun one. That was a learning experience. Again, I did that all by myself. That was before I have a lot of the team that I have now. So it was working with a limited budget and just being creative and trusting your artistic vision with a friend, and your friend also, helping you out too. Because my friend was the director of it, and it ran through his company. We're the same age, so we kind of came up together. And I came to the point, I was like, dude, I think I'm ready to do like my first music video, like a real one, like the real way, like let's do it right. Here's the song. And we just went to Starbucks and just like got high on caffeine and just came up with like 100 different ways we could do it. And we solidified this version of it. And we're like, okay, well, we need ride to fly. How are we going to do that? And he ended up having this connection at this huge church out west here in Florida. It was like one of those mega churches. So they have like the whole green room, the audio visual department, all these green screens and stuff. So we came up with this flying concept of like, you're on a head trip, right? Like you're flying through the sky. And we were just, it was really cool. It was really DIY, but we were able to bring it together with a small team and execute it. And we did that in, I think, 2 days. Being like a low budget thing, we had to make work with what we had and be super creative. So that was a lot of fun. It was a learning experience, definitely, but it was a lot of fun.
It came out very cool.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, it was, again, I just owe it to being surrounded by great people and great friends. Like all the extras was just all like friends and family that you see in like the audience and stuff. And that we just used like clips that we could find to like sink in with it and make it look even bigger. So it was like having like 20 of my very good friends drive out there with us for the day and just act like they're the audience and wave. And it was a really fun experience.
All right, sir. Well, we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we take a moment to shine the light on somebody who's worked behind the scenes or somebody who may have supported you along the way. Do you have anybody you'd like to shine a little light on?
Well, always it starts with Mama, number one. Love her. She's been such a huge role model.
Smart man.
Yeah, role model of my life. Love you, Mom. And then number two, my manager, Chris. I mean, when he came into my life and my career, it's just been such a cool learning and beautiful experience to share everything with him, just not only as a manager, but as a friend, just to bounce ideas off and have someone there besides family and my mama in the corner, you know, for you doing this journey with me. So that, and then my vocal coach too. She's been an amazing, amazing, amazing light in my life as well. Shout out Miss Candy.
A big thanks to Rye for taking the time to share his stories with us, and thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I know I've said it, but I will say it again. I really do appreciate it. If you know anyone that would enjoy this episode, please be sure to share it. You can do that and find the links to everything mentioned over at jfranzi.com/episode 121. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franzi Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranzi.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.